right. I believe we are about to be live again. Here we go. Let's see. All right. I believe we are about to be live again. Here we go. Okay. All right, so sorry about that, everybody. We are live on Periscope as well as YouTube, and I think the sound is better. So back to GOCHAIN. Obviously, you've positioned yourselves as an Ethereum competitor. Faster, stronger. That's what I see when I look up GOCHAIN, is how it's faster, stronger, more decentralized. I want to kind of dive into that and kind of go through that a little bit and understand. And also, I'd like to get your take on what's going on right now in Ethereum, with Ethereum, as well as like altcoin markets and ICOs as well. I think that would be a good discussion. So GOCHAIN is 10 times what? Can you give me that?
Yeah, 10 times more decentralized, 100 times faster, and 1,000 times greener.
1,000
and how
times
we get
greener.
how we get to those numbers are, essentially there's a huge difference between the promise of decentralization and the current reality of 4 mining pools in China accounting for 70 to 80% of the hash power. So that's basically how we get to that. And so we came in with 50 geographically dispersed nodes to basically offset that. We're basically forcing geographic dispersion. So and essentially, our stance on this is we're basically forcing some rules to achieve this. And so that, some people would say we actually took a step back towards centralization, which we actually would agree with. But the offset of that, based on what's happened, is that actually benefits us to do so, because humans aren't exactly when there's resources that are worth lots of money, they don't like to share. They like to gather, hoard, and so that's what they're doing in terms of the the Ethereum mining and things like that. So in terms of the speed and performance, we did several things. We changed proof of work to proof of reputation, which is an upgraded form of proof of authority. And then we basically rewrote the whole Ethereum Go client for speed and performance. And we probably made 100 plus changes to the code base and just optimized it wherever we could. And then we utilized some off-chain data storage and data compression and some different ways of handling the data to deal with that. And then the 1,000 times greener basically just comes mostly from moving away, almost primarily from proof of work, which is just, just a tremendous waste of energy. And honestly, I think that a lot of people really, really like that. And there's no need. It's just proof of work is just really overkill.
Right. But the 50 nodes that will be supporting GOCHAIN, those are going to be enterprises or companies. Have you are all 50 of those up and running right now? Have they been selected?
No, I think there's about 11. I think there's about 11 of them right now currently. So yeah, it's going to take us probably about a year to build out that node network. So it'll take us some time.
Right. So we can't ignore the current state of the market. We are fully in a bear market right now. People are unhappy. They've lost money. The saltiness, per se, is at an all-time high. And frankly, I'm sensing that there is a ton of doubt and scrutiny when it comes to the ICO bubble that popped. Why did these projects have such huge valuations in January and December? And people are kind of asking themselves those questions now, where back 6-8 months ago, they were enjoying the rewards of kind of like a really out of control speculative market. But now you're seeing this pivot to Bitcoin maximalism, where people are even then questioning the value of something like Ethereum. Now, where does that leave GOCHAIN? Why should we believe that this isn't just a vaporware project that's going to disappear when the purge happens on most altcoins, which, you're looking at the pricing, a lot of these things are down 90%. So where does GOCHAIN find itself in between and throughout the bear market?
Yeah, look, it's affecting everybody, and it is probably one of the ugliest bear markets I've ever seen. I used to be a trader. I used to run a hedge fund, so I've been, in financial markets for probably close to 25 years. And I saw 2000 and I saw 2008. So those were two of the worst that I've ever seen. I think the Nasdaq was down, 80 or 80% or something like that in 2000, and then 2008 it was down pretty big as well. But look, it won't last forever. It will turn around. There tends to need to be a catalyst. So there's going to have to be a catalyst to get people into the market. And because of the fact that, more ICOs have constantly come out, that's sucking a lot of money out of, say Ethereum into other projects. And then that money's going into other projects. Those projects are having to sell Ethereum or, Bitcoin or whatever that is. And so there's more supply. A lot of supply has basically come on the market. And so when you add a bear market with excess supply continually increasing, this is what happens. And so, in 2000 and 2008, when those crashes happen, basically the IPO market just has to freeze up it basically has to be frozen solid and stop. And I think if we're not there, we're like as close as it gets. The ICO market from what I'm seeing, there's barely anybody that's able to raise, and I think that's a good thing, and so it basically stops the supply for a while and, lets people kind of, get more rational and get their footing and figure out, what's actually going on. It also gets rid of the bad projects, like you said, and the good ones will stick around. In terms of us, why we think we'll stick around is we've taken a totally different approach to, what we're doing in that fact that we think in order to be relevant, we have to gain adoption. I think what is it, 50% of the projects, or I think it's close to 50% of the projects in the top 100, tokens or coins don't even have a live product.
Right.
Right. So here's how we're going to be relevant. We have a live product and we have a biz dev team. I like I said, I'm the CEO. We have, a head of biz dev, and then we've got a customer success team, and we're actively working to support projects in, developing a real product and coming to market with real projects that are built on GOCHAIN, where some of the other ones maybe don't have that onboarding support and can't continue to make themselves relevant. And so we're taking steps to make sure that we have adoption and that we drive adoption, from now and going forward.
Good. Yeah, when you look at some of the majority of the other ICOs out there and projects and platforms, most of them are taking kind of like an if you build it, they will come approach. And based off of one of the things that I do like about GOCHAIN is the team. You guys are experienced folks. I know some of the advisors, Shane and Ben, and I see during a bear market, I think it was August 7th and the 9th, you announced 2 new additions to the team. You want to tell us a little bit about those guys?
Sure. Yeah. That's the other thing is look, I think some of the talent that we're attracting and some of the people we have on the team, I don't think they'd be showing up if this project was just going to go away. We added Bill McAdis, who has been the go-to-market executive for 3 of the fastest, SaaS growing companies of all time, SaaS being software as a service. And, so he started out as one of the top marketing executives at Salesforce, taking them to over $3 billion in revenue. He was senior vice president of marketing. And then he was the CMO at Zendesk. And then he was the CMO and CRO at Slack, which is the fastest B2B, SaaS growing company of all time. So, he's a unicorn creator. I think he's had 5 exits, and I think 4 of those 5, or maybe all 5 of those, have been multi-billion-dollar, massive exits. So look, this guy it's his first foray into blockchain. He can choose any project he wants, and he chose us, and we feel very fortunate to have him on our team, helping us on the marketing side to help get the word out. And then also, just as pivotal on the total complete other side of the equation is David Koenig on the governance side. And look, he's written a book called Governance Reimagined. He's got 200 book recommendations from top people all over the world, from academics to Nobel laureates to heads of major investment banks and risk management think tanks and economic think tanks and the like. And the point is any protocol that's really going to last in the long term needs to have governance nailed, and we think we have one of the top experts in the world in the space that's going to help us build out our governance protocol. And we think that when things, we think that things can and will go wrong at some point, and we need to make sure that when they break and they fail, that they break and fail properly to where we have safeguards and protections in to to handle and mitigate the problems and disputes that may come up, and so we think if we do that properly now, it'll keep us around for the long term.
I agree. I mean, like when I saw those two additions, I mean, adding to the existing team, obviously people would not be joining this project at this point in time if they thought that it was just going to go down and be over with. So, I mean, it brings a lot of confidence. I saw a video with you, maybe, I think it was in July. The market wasn't as particularly bad as it is now, but it wasn't great. And you were discussing how you guys have a war chest and you're planning to kind of do some capital investing into cryptocurrency. Now, fast forward a month and a half later, you have a lot of discussion in the space as far as ICOs that, perhaps raised money in the beginning of the year or late last year, and they raised, let's say 20 million in Ethereum. And then they were holding that Ethereum and didn't actually cash out anything, and now they're having to panic and sell. Meanwhile, it's under $300 when they could have, secured that capital at over 1,000. I mean, what's your take on what's going on? And do you still feel that investing some of the funds that you guys raised in crypto is the right play?
I think if you're have a long-term focus and you're long-term investors, yes. And I think that's the interesting thing that we're seeing right now is I think what's happening is a lot of the easy money is being washed out of the market, and a lot of the the early people or people that came in late that were looking for the easy money. I mean, that they're getting wiped out. They're going away. I mean, this is investing and building companies has always been a long-term business, and that's the way that we look at it. And so any investments we look at from a long-term perspective. Have we adjusted our spending, because of where we are? Absolutely. I mean, that's the smart thing to do. In addition, obviously, we have capital to invest, but we're being very, very tight with that, because what's the point if we're the only ones investing and nobody else is investing in a project? It doesn't make sense to have our money just sit there and be the only ones in. So we'll wait until the market unthaws and turns around to deploy a lot of that capital and just protect and build our company. And again, we'll support projects in every way that every other way that we can, whether that's supporting them with dev work or architecture or making introductions, and the like. But we are building something for the long run, and we're not worried about month to month or even quarter to quarter fluctuations like we have. And if we were, then I don't think people would want to be investing in our project, and I certainly wouldn't suggest it for them. So
right.
I just want to make that clear to anybody that's part of GOCHAIN, is that we very much see this as a long-term play, and that's what we're building. We're building something built to last.
Very good. I mean, that's a good strategy to take, in my opinion. Like one of the things that you're seeing, and it's very prevalent, is Ethereum did so many ICOs, and then the ICOs obviously need to sell the Ethereum, and when the demand subsides for ICOs, you see the price with Ethereum as well go down. Now, I know you guys have launched, I think, was it 5 ICOs on GOCHAIN already? Am I?
Yes. We've got four that we've
right?
announced public. Yeah, there's many more coming, but like I said, it's frozen. So
yeah,
eventually they'll come.
Yeah, and I see you've also partnered with Prima Block.
Yep.
So it's definitely taking an active approach into the ICO game. As far as like adoption is concerned, like what do you envision in the future? Because I know you had teased that you're working on a partnership with a top 10 company. Can't wait to hear which one that is and if it actually goes through. But like what does adoption look like in the mainstream as far as like a platform like GOCHAIN? Is it something where it's like running behind the scenes and nobody really knows what GOCHAIN is except for like investors like us? Or do you think it becomes like a household name? Like what's that look like?
Yeah, I mean, so There's a few things that we're actively doing. I mean, any partnership, so let me take a step back and put it in perspective so people understand, what we're building. I mean, we have an amazing dev team run by Travis Reeder, who was a former CTO of a company called Iron.io. They major VC-backed startup, raised 17 million from top-tier VCs like Bain and Sapphire. At Iron, Travis, I mean, he was the man. He was a lead dev and architect, and they, pioneered serverless cloud computing to over 1 million transactions a second. That's like the holy grail of blockchain scaling. So he's brought over a couple devs from Iron. He's handpicked the dev team. So we are super strong and solid there. Then on the business side, look, I run it, and like I developed a great business team, and then I brought guys in like, Bill McAdis and the rest of the advisors, Ben, Emily Bush, Etienne, right down the line, David Koenig. And we built this in to basically to make it, well-rounded from every capacity. So on the, ICO and post-ICO and marketing side and partnerships, we've really got, Ben and the rest of the advisors. From the marketing perspective going forward to get our name out there, to become a household name, we brought in someone like Bill McAdis. I mean, everybody knows Zendesk, everybody knows Slack, everybody knows Salesforce. And how do they know that? They know that because of marketing executives, like Bill McAdis. So we've brought that onto our team. Now, how do you build a company to last? You bring in guys like David Koenig to make sure that you've got the governance protocol and the governance framework totally built out, so that if there's ever any problems, that gets totally, handled. On top of that, you've got to gain adoption, we've got Matt King, who's probably one of the best networkers and most well-connected guys I know. And then Ian Alexander, I mean, he runs our customer success team, and he's probably one of the most well-versed guys on blockchain. He came from IBM Hyperledger. I mean, he's an absolute, academic almost when it comes to understanding the space, and he can really interface with different dev teams and our dev team and find out what projects need and support that, adoption to get across the finish line. So to tie a bow around this whole thing, what we're actively trying to do is partner with venture capital firms to basically bring projects to us, to where we'll, incentivize them in some capacity or partner with them in some capacity to do so. And then any partnerships that we're doing as well, because we offer more of a full service solution, there are many more big enterprise companies that are much more interested in partnering with us, because we do offer, call it white glove, full service, whatever it may be, and that will be obvious. And the last thing I'll add on that is we do have a couple of middleware partnerships that are in the process of being put together. We've got 2 middleware solutions. One's basically an enterprise, like a Wix for enterprise dApps, and that is run by a company by guys that have raised over 100 million in venture backing previous to this venture, but they really know what they're doing. And then another is a true middleware solution where you'll be able to write in .NET, Java, C#, Python, any coding language, and it has a Solidity compiler in behind that will be able to, build on GOCHAIN. So from, ICOs coming to build on GOCHAIN, all the way to dApps, to governance, to marketing, we feel like we've built a really solid, well-rounded organization to be there. And so bear market, be it as it may, we're building something to really be a juggernaut going forward.
I like the confidence, man. Definitely. I mean, I can tell you believe what you're saying. And one thing that I do look at in projects, and it's kind of like a very fine line, because you want to see a leadership that understands the importance of marketing, but at the same time, you don't want to overdo it. But, look at something like Tron, where, marketing played a very big role, and Justin Sun, their CEO, obviously, has been very vocal about generating hype around the project. Now, I don't see you as that same type of person, but you're a charismatic guy. This isn't your first rodeo, and I like that you're very, very active within the space. I mean, you do these little videos. You've done a ton of AMAs, and clearly you understand what it takes to get the marketing component done. And then you add Bill in there, just kind of levels you guys up even more as far as marketing is concerned. Being that the platform space is kind of crowded now, back in January and the height of the market, platforms performed extremely well. And I would always think to myself, how can all of these really be worth anything? You know, there's going to be a select few that survive. I mean, how do you, I know you'd make comparisons to Ethereum, and as far as, you know, being greener and proof of work versus proof of stake, Vitalik recently came out with like about 75 tweets talking about how he's planning to transition to a proof of stake model. Who knows when that will be, but that seems to be the direction that they're heading. Forget Ethereum. What about these blockchain 3.0 and 4.0 platforms like EOS, Cardano, even Neo, which is not 3.0 but has been around and is a little more modern per se than Ethereum. While Ethereum is one of the older ones that needs to be scaled, it still has the most pressure testing out of any network. So, like, where do you compare yourself to the newer stuff, and what do you make of Ethereum going to proof of stake?
Yeah, so let me just take your comments and questions kind of one at a time.
I know I threw a lot at you there. Sorry about that.
No, I got it though. Yeah, no, and I think you're right. And look, here's the difference. We're not looking for a sugar high. We are building something for the long run. And none of us that are in this isn't our first rodeo. We've made money in other ventures, and we wouldn't be here. It's not to make $1 million or even $2 million. It's not even interesting to us. It doesn't there's no point to getting out of bed to do that. The point is we want to build something the point is we want to build something really, really big, and we think we can make an impact on the space. And I'm sure you can tell, like, I jump out of bed, I'm energized every day. I love what I'm doing. I love our team. I love what we've built. And I think people get the energy. I mean, obviously you say, you're getting it, and I think people feel it. And the thing is that, look, we have consistently under promised and over delivered, and we will continue to do so. And everything that I've ever said will come out, and we don't try to hype things that aren't real, and so we want everyone to know that if we say something, that it's we say what we mean what we say, and they can count on it. So all that will come to fruition. And then in terms of how we're going to stick around and make a difference versus the other protocols, we brought on a business organization because we know we need to gain adoption. So the difference between everyone you mentioned and us, and again, we don't, I'm not trying to, throw any shade at these other guys. They're geniuses. Vitalik's a genius. Hoskins is a genius. Like all these guys, these guys are genius programmers. But where we think that there is a hole and a gap that we fill is on the business side. We bring business savvy. We bring an enterprise solution. We bring that extra, little bit extra support, and onboarding, and someone that'll answer the phone, and someone that will return emails, and someone that will answer questions and support the projects to gain adoption. So that's literally how we think we're going to be relevant and how we're going to compete with these guys in the long term. And to put kind of even more structure to what I'm saying is, we think that if we continue to do what we do, we'll be in the top 5 in ICO volume in the next 12 months. And if we really are successful, we'll be in the top 3. And that means we're basically in the conversation of, the EOS, Ethereum, us, Stellar, right. NEM, Cardano. I mean, we're right there, in that group. And that's, that's what we're building.
EOS, sorry. EOS is like, sure, being that they raised, $1 billion, and they're such a powerhouse. How do you beat them?
Sure. Here's how we're gonna compete with them. A combination of our business savvy and business side governance. We will put our governance framework and model up against anybody. David Koenig is one of the best in the world, and it will become obvious, very obvious. And so we have no problem doing that. And then here I'll lay the framework of where we're going in the future. So right now you've got Ethereum, which is untrusted, unpermissioned. We're trusted, permissioned, and then you've got kind of EOS, which is more closer to our side with delegated proof of stake. But here's where we're going. We're going to have we're bringing on a company called Etherprise, which we've kind of architected, and is actually being run by Travis's co-founder from Iron, Jameson Stafford from who was at Catalytic before this and is also an advisor to GOCHAIN. 2 very, very capable guys that again have probably 20 years experience in the enterprise space. So the Etherprise is basically the private side of what like GOCHAIN is. And so it's encrypted smart contracts. So it's like if you wanted to run your payroll or some of your contracts and things like that to be encrypted, some probably medical data and some medical records and stuff like that. So that'll be on the Etherprise side. That'll be interoperable with GOCHAIN. So that's on the far encryption side. Let's call that the far right side. Then you've got GOCHAIN in the middle, which is a public permission trusted blockchain. Now, on the other side, once we get large enough and we have the time, we're going to come out with an untrusted, unpermissioned, just like Ethereum, and we're going to have all of those interoperable across 1, 2, 3. Nobody else will have that framework. Right now, it's all kind of siloed, and to us, those are basically the three use cases for blockchain. It's totally open, untrusted, unpermissioned, which is like Ethereum. Then there's trusted, permissioned, which is but still on a public blockchain like us. And then you've got the private, permissioned, basically privacy, security, encryption, which is Etherprise. And we're going to make those completely and totally interoperable. And that should cover basically the framework of all of those. So that's where we're going in the future to give people an idea and how we think we can compete with, the EOSs and the Ethereums and the NEMs and the NEOs of the world. And we have the capacity and the architecture, and we're already doing it with, Etherprises in the process of ICOing.
Now, so what is it? Jobs.com is also another one. What's your being that I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the way your platform works is anybody can actually create an ICO on GOCHAIN now. But
correct.
Do you actively look for projects and kind of, entice them into building on GOCHAIN? Is there we
are, yeah. So I mean that's, and I continue to say this on AMAs too. I mean I literally do probably 8 to 12 calls every single day, and so that's how we're getting out there too. Is I literally get on the phone, get on video calls, and talk to projects all day long. The point of it is that we need to get big projects on GOCHAIN. And if people start, building on GOCHAIN as opposed to EOS, and job.com is one of them, they were looking at, it came down to EOS and us. And a lot of the projects we talk to, that's what it is coming down to. And so we definitely, when we're making investments and we want to push stuff forward, from a PR standpoint and really help them, job.com is a real business. I think they've got, 20 some million users already on their platform. They are in the process of working on some major partnerships. So they're really pushing their ICO right now. So they actually just pegged ETH to 500 to basically, lure people off the frozen tundra and to try to get them investing.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. That's basically people probably started investing at ETH 500 back in ICOs. So they said, you know what? We have use cases and we have partnerships that they're working on, and they don't want to take their foot off the gas, and they believe in their project, and so they're willing to take a risk and reward investors, right now for doing that. And we think that that's a great idea, and are supporting them as much as we can.
All right. Let me open it up to the chat and see if anybody has some questions they want to ask. From Matthew, who will be the first ICO launched? I know there are 4 announced.
Yeah, I think job.com is looks like they're taking the lead on that.
Jobs.com. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Anybody else? Let's see. Well, I have a question. In the near future, are you familiar with Rootstock as the platform?
I am, yes. I'm not. I'm familiar with them.
Right.
I wouldn't say I couldn't make their pitch for them, but
right.
I'm familiar with them.
So it's, they're backed by CoinDesk and a lot of really strong devs, and it's going to be the first Bitcoin smart contract platform, which will run, I believe, as a sidechain to Bitcoin. But
sure.
it could completely change the game as far as smart contracts go. Is that something that, well, I guess you guys feel is competition, or like what? Well, I guess if you're not too familiar with them, then it's.
I am. Here's how I would answer that. They definitely will have their use cases, and I still think, look, if it was as easy as just having the best devs in the world and building the best product, then Microsoft would never be where it is today. Google would never be where it is today. For real. I mean,
yeah, no, you're right. You're 100% right.
It's not the best product or service that wins. It's the one that gains adoption. And one of the founding partners of Neo Global, actually, when I was in China and I met with him, that's what I asked him for some advice when we were just completed our ICO, and that's what he said. He said, gain adoption. He said, that's it. He said that, he said that will be the difference. And so that's what, we were already in that camp, but that's our focus. And so we're trying to provide value add to make sure that we do that.
Very good. Somebody had an exchange question. We can't really discuss that. Obviously, I'm sure, we would like, Jason would like to see more liquidity on his token and more exchanges, but I don't think he can really get into that. Let's rewind a little bit to before GOCHAIN, the genesis of GOCHAIN. When you sat down with Trevor, right? Travis, sorry about that. And he kind of told you about crypto. Like, what was that conversation like? Be honest. Like,
sure. Yeah, I mean, the very first one, it was interesting when he and I first started talking about it. It was basically, I ran into him at the coffee shop and we just started talking about crypto, and I asked him if he had an idea for a project, and he said, as a matter of fact, I do.
Yeah.
And that's literally how it started. And then, when it was just basically an idea, he asked me to be on the advisory board, and then once it started, coming to fruition and kind of coming around more, then, I had exited my previous company and he needed some help on the executive side. And, Travis is a really humble guy. I mean, he doesn't want to be doing interviews like this. He's perfectly happy. If you've seen him in the other interviews, he's perfectly happy for me to introduce him and talk about him. He doesn't like to hype himself up. And so
right.
It's probably the best business partnership I've ever had, because what he's really good at is not what I'm good at. What I'm really good at is not what he's good at. So it works.
That's great. Sounds like a marriage made in heaven,
Exactly.
Just complement each other very well.
Yes.
Suzumi asks, is there a defining aspect of GOCHAIN other than transactions per second?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of them. I mean, obviously, the first thing I would say is the team and, the organization that we've built. And then, from that end, I mean, that's really what I'm trying to get out to the world, is I'm trying to get them to understand. I mean, look, I'll run through it again quickly. On the ICO side, here's what we've got. We've got an investor network starting with Ben Gadenzi, Emily Bush, and our advisors all the way down, Etienne, all the way down the chain. They're some of the best money raisers in blockchain and crypto. Now, in terms of the platforms, we have a Prima Block integration. I think next to Ethereum, we're the only ones that have that. Now, to take it to the next level, we have another partnership with a company called Safe Contracts IO, which is the first full-service platform that will do whitelist, KYC, AML, smart contract auditing, mainnet token swaps. There's no other platform that does that. So we basically created an ICO in a box solution there. Now on the dApps side, we've got two middleware solutions. I talked about them: Wix for enterprise dApps, and then the other one you can build on basically any coding language. And then deploy on GOCHAIN Solidity compiler. We got the governance sorted out. We've got Bill Makaitis, and then we've got our business organization. We've got our dev team behind. There's nobody else in blockchain that has built what we've built. And so now we have to, it is on us, and I'm perfectly willing to take it on my shoulders to execute. And so we've built what we needed to build. We went out and got the partnerships we needed to get for ICOs and for dApps. And so now it's all about execution.
Good answer. One of my questions for the enterprises that you're targeting, is there a specific or geographical location that you're looking at? Are you getting into Asia, Korea, Japan, China, America, or
Yeah. So that's something that I should add too. I mean, here's another piece of the puzzle that I almost forgot: security tokens. We are in the process. We will, in the next couple days, we will be announcing another partnership with a company on the security token side to do security tokens on GOCHAIN. So we are not leaving anything out. And the point of it is they are fully SEC compliant. They actually are compliant in many jurisdictions of the world. And to trade securities, you need KYC, AML, and they have basically the first seamless platform to do so. And we will be announcing a partnership in the next few days, 1 week at the most. I have the draft of the press release in my email box. I haven't been able to look at it quite yet this morning, but it may even be announced in the next 24 hours. But the point is, again, we are filling every single hole to the point where it literally will be up to us to gain adoption, because we are building everything possible and doing all the partnerships.
Exciting stuff. I can't wait to see what that one is. But I mean, obviously, security tokens is, if you can look at the way utility tokens are going. I'm not saying that they're going away, but to have, you know, a foothold in security tokens is very important these days as well. And I wasn't aware of that.
There's only so many utilities too. Like at some point, utilities of blockchain run out, right? Like you can only have so many utility solutions, and so at some point you have to go to, you know, securities.
Yeah. Will there be any incentive for GOCHAIN holders in the future, like airdrop tokens for ICOs on Go, similar to ES model?
You know, we've talked about that a little bit. You know, there may be one-off, you know, basically if you know, a token that's ICOing wants to do something like that, but we don't have anything, there's nothing in the immediate plans to do so.
Okay. Do you agree with Vitalik when he said that the ICO bubble burst? How will this influence GOCHAIN future?
Somewhat, but do I agree with him in terms of on the utility token side? Yes. But I still think that there are still quite a few utility tokens, and I think tons of security tokens are coming in the current form of what he's talking about. I do agree with that. Going forward, I think that the industry will evolve just like, you know, the NASDAQ evolved, and it will just change slightly. But the reality is that Wall Street really isn't in crypto yet, and they are coming. They are coming. As soon as they can figure out some of these custody solutions and some of the private keys and you know, some of these issues, they will come.
In your opinion, is that a good or a bad thing for the retail investor that's here now?
Both. It will be a good thing from a custody solution, and it will make it easier in that capacity. Where it's a bad thing is it's going to take, when investment banking gets involved, they're going to start setting valuations, and they're basically going to take the gains out of ICO. So, you know, an ICO that goes and raises 20 million and then it opens up at $100 million valuation, that when investment banking gets involved, that will go away. You know, that ICO will basically probably ICO at 65 or 70 million, and it will open at 100 million instead of, you know, the valuations will change. And so they'll get adjusted, and those gains will, you know, will be adjusted accordingly as well.
Let's see. Dave Kim says, this is a tough question. If you were saying your greatest feature other than frames per section is a specific team, how is this decentralized? Well,
so I say several things. I never said anything about having a decentralized team was a good thing, and so I'm not sure where that,
right.
You know, look, we are not a decentralized autonomous organization, and this is something that I'll be talking about more in the future, but the reality is that true decentralization collapses on itself, and people can do the research and history, and when we come out with our governance framework, and I'm sure it'll be somewhat controversial, but this is why we have a governance expert on our staff. True decentralization collapses on itself. It will not work. And so there have to be some laws or safeguards or rules or ways for handling, you know, disputes and dispute resolution and all those kinds of things, and those mechanisms. And so we're not trying to be the most decentralized team in the world, and we're not trying to be a decentralized autonomous organization. We're basically trying to gain blockchain adoption in the most decentralized manner that's available today. And so right now we're doing the best we can with what we think is available in the confines of what we think is the best way to do it.
Right. Suzumi says Bitcoin is still alive and it's the most decentralized asset in the market. Well, it's a little bit different than GOCHAIN. It's not the same.
Yeah, a decentralized asset is totally. I love decentralized asset. I love decentralized exchanges. I love the fact that the world is moving to more of a decentralized one. That's what we are trying to support that. The only difference is that the maximalists don't like that we're moving back towards the center to hold people's hands across in this direction. And so that's the only place that we're at, is that we're basically saying, hey guys, let's take a baby step. We agree with you. I don't disagree with you, but we have to take one step at a time to get to more of a decentralized world, and the world will be better, much more skewed towards decentralization. So that I do agree with.
Right. Look at Ripple. I mean, that's a token that was, bashed and battered for being not centralized, not decentralized. Yet, the performance was really exceptional. If you're an investor, you have to put your beliefs as far as, your libertarian and kind of like anarchist views, which, I have some in me as well. That's one of the things that got me into this space is, I like the whole fight the power, let's be decentralized. And then your investor side has to take that and also take into account what's actually going to work in the real world. And, just because something isn't completely decentralized doesn't mean it's not going to succeed.
Correct.
Let's see. I think I really enjoyed this conversation. Guys that are watching and tuning in now, I'm sorry for the technical difficulties in the beginning, but I think we really got. I mean, let's put it this way. Personally, as I said, this is a sponsored interview. I want to be as objective as possible. And when I was talking to Jason before briefly, I said, look, I don't have any script. I want you to. Basically, I'm going to give you some tough questions and talk about the market and, do your best to sell me on GOCHAIN why I should even care about this project at this point and why my audience should. And I think you did a really exceptional job of doing that because, it's something that, like, when you compare it to the other exchanges as far as market capitalization and the team involved, it definitely has upside. This is not financial advice. Continue to do your own research. But I've been doing research, and I think I like the upside here in comparison to some of the other platforms. So something I'm going to definitely keep an eye on. I'm excited to hear about that next announcement. And the last question is, how do you plan to spend your birthday today?
Sure. Well, one last thing I want to add is that you did ask me if anything was off limits, and I told you no.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I said, is there anything you don't want to discuss? Absolutely not. And you said no. I don't care. Yeah. And I like that. That's like you're a serial entrepreneur. You're the front man, and you really have that quality, and I admire that. So,
thank you.
I'm kind of the same way. Like, we'll just call it like it is. Let's have a conversation. This is people are critical these days. It's really tough to get people to watch these AMAs because everybody is just so shell-shocked and battered and every project is smashed. So they're like, why is this guy telling me to buy this coin? I'm not telling you to buy the coin, but I'm trying to give you some information on a project as well as have a discussion where you guys might actually learn something about investing. So I hope you enjoyed it. Happy birthday, Jason. What are you doing for the rest of the day?
So I actually, just like I normally do, I have a full day literally booked. I have a call every hour, maybe a half hour, all the way till about 5:30. Yeah. And then I've got a whole bunch of friends planning a dinner for me tonight, so I'll be looking forward to that.
All right, man. Well, we'll enjoy it. Thanks for your time. I had a blast. And I'll be keeping my eyes out on GOCHAIN. Take care, everybody. I hope you enjoyed.